On this episode of Locked On Lightning, we're talking about a big win at home. Braydon Point, is he top five? I think so. Andrei Vasilevskiy comes one goal shy once again, picking up his first shutout of the season. We talk about all that and more. But first, let's play that music.
You're Locked On Lightning, your daily podcast on the Tampa Bay Lightning. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another episode of Locked On Lightning, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Adam Decker. I want to thank all of you for making us your first listen of the day. On this episode of Locked On Lightning, we're discussing the big bounce-back win at home for the Tampa Bay Lightning, winning 4-1 at Amalie against Atlantic Division rivals. I really wouldn't call them rivals. I don't think at this point in time we could even classify the Montreal Canadiens as division rivals, but nonetheless, a very good win at home, a very good performance all around. But the performance that caught the eye of everybody was, of course, that of Braydon Point. 2 goals tonight, one of which was probably one of the best goals you've seen scored all year. And I'm not even saying that as someone who hosts a podcast about the Lightning, who is a Lightning fan, someone who is a fan of hockey, who could appreciate Braydon Point, what he did tonight. And really, that's where I want to start. Braydon Point has been having a hell of a season thus far. And I feel like over the last couple of years, at least, especially the last 2, when this guy is healthy, and we all are familiar with his struggles of staying healthy, 2 goals tonight, 3 point, with a plus minus of 1. He was 2 for 2 on his shots. The one thing I think that we need to start all acknowledging, and Lightning fans know all about Braydon Point already, but I feel like Braydon Point being on this Lightning team that has been so successful, that has a very good group of players that have a lot of big names. And if you're listening to this podcast in audio form, or you hear some noise in the background, we're watching the Penguins Detroit Red Wings game in which the Penguins just blew the lead late. I was really hoping that the Penguins could have held on to this game, especially after the Lightning winning theirs tonight and putting a little bit more distance in the standings between the Lightning and the Red Wings. But that's besides the point. Little bit of annoyed. If you're watching me on YouTube, my expression just went from happy to just very disgusted. But getting back to Braydon Point, has been, I think, not to Lightning fans, but I think to hockey fans in general around the league, those that are only really sometimes see Braydon Point during the playoffs, where he has, a lot of people have, because of his performances, how well he has played in the playoffs over the last 3 years. But I think we need to start really acknowledging, if even as Lightning fans, that Point is, I think, in the top 5 of players right now in the league in forwards. Now, he picked up 2 points tonight, 2 goals tonight as well. That puts him to 19 on the season. And, obviously the goals have not been updated as of yet. So that ties him with Cole Caulfield, who we saw play tonight. That ties him with Kirill Kaprizov, Sidney Crosby for the players that have 19 goals in the league. Obviously, that might change overnight by the time maybe some of you listen to this podcast, because those numbers aren't updated right away. But when you look at the players, especially goals scored, because I view Braydon Point as a player who, he can do a little bit of everything, and that's fantastic. But I think really when he gets on these roles, especially the one that we have seen him have throughout the course of December, I firmly believe that he is one of the top players in the league, top 5. The goal, and even if you don't believe, even if you're not a firm believer in, there's more to being top 5 in the league than just points. Look at that goal he scored tonight, where he was skating down the ice, took the puck into the zone, lost it for a minute, recovered it, kept the play going, diced through 3-4 opposing players on Montreal, and deked past the goaltender and scored. And if you want to go off of that, if you want to go off of talent, because that's not really the first time we have seen Braydon Point do something like this. I've spoken about many times on this podcast how that is Braydon Point's bread and butter right there. That's going down, straight down the slot, basically saying to the other team, "Here I come, try and stop me." And they 9 times out of 10, they don't. Especially when he's feeling it, especially when he's playing with confidence. And if you want to go off that ability to be able to do that, to dice, to slice your way through opposing defenses, if you want to compare that to somebody in the league, I mean, or just off of that highlight, that goal that was scored tonight, there's only one other player in the NHL that could make that play, that has made that play consistently, that it is almost like clockwork that we see him score a goal like that every couple of months or so. That is Connor McDavid. And we all know that Connor McDavid is the best player on the planet. So by comparison, is Braydon Point? Well, this is really where you got to ask yourself a question. If we are comparing those two guys and their skill sets, now there are certain boxes that McDavid checks off where obviously Braydon Point doesn't. But if I'm really going to keep to my comparison, which I will, I look at Braydon Point, and this is no disrespect towards 21 at all. Braydon Point is a poor man's Connor McDavid. Now, if that's the case, if that's the label we're going to throw on Braydon Point, then even with that that puts you at the way top of the league behind the guy we're currently comparing him to. Now, if you look at straight up goals scored in the league right now, Braydon Point, we all know with him, he somewhat gets off to a slow start, has really started to pick it up. Like I said, he is tied for, as of now, 19th in the league. That puts him in the 12th mark overall in the league in goals. If we're going straight off of that, especially coupled with ability, and I firmly believe that he is going to continue this role. You look at who's above him. You look at some of the names, and you have to ask yourself, who are you going to take in a situation? If you're playing pickup hockey and you're captain, who are you taking over who? Or who are you starting a franchise around? Are you taking, at this point in time, are you taking Jason Robertson over Braydon Point? Is Jason Robertson, because he has 24 points in 36 games, better than Braydon Point? I don't think so. Is Tage Thompson better than Braydon Point? I don't believe so. Is Mikko Rantanen better than Braydon Point? Is he bigger of an impact player than Braydon Point? I don't think so. Maybe Locked On Avalanche host Chris Masilli and Kyle Sullivan might think so. But what I am saying is that maybe, just maybe, now obviously Stamkos is the captain. He will always be the leader of this team as he still continues to put on a Lightning jersey. But it's not too crazy to say with the Stamkoses, with the Kucherovs in the lineup, that you look at Braydon Point and think to yourself, and it's not too crazy of a thought to ask yourself this, and I firmly believe it, but I'm going to ask all of you, the listener, the watcher, those watching on YouTube, is Braydon Point the best player on this team? Comment below in the YouTube comments. Let us know on our social media pages, LO_lightning on Twitter. I firmly believe so. I've if you've been a long enough listener of this show, there are times where I say numbers tell the story, and there's other times where it doesn't. There's times where the eye test tells the story, and there's other times where I say it doesn't tell the whole story. But in this situation with Braydon Point, it tells more than the story. It makes a convincing argument that Braydon Point is not only the best player on this Lightning team, but also top 5 player in the NHL. So we'll be talking more about what happened from this game, mostly Vasilevskiy, his performance in this game. I really thought he was going to get to it. I really thought he was going to get his first shutout of the season. Looks like we're going to have to wait a little bit longer. We also talk about, the schedule. Not so much a question, but more so a comment that was made on our last video, which I really want to talk about as well. Does the NHL have it in against the Tampa Bay Lightning this year with the way they've made their schedule? We'll talk about that as well. But in the meantime, I want to remind you that this episode of Locked On Lightning is brought to you by BetOnline.net. Now, BetOnline.net is your number one source for all your sports betting needs. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from pro football to college bowl season to basketball and more. We've got it all at BetOnline.net. Now, they're always the fastest and easiest way to get your sports betting info. So head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. So once again, I want to thank everybody for making us your first listen of the day. And if you haven't already done so, please go ahead and like and subscribe to the podcast. Give us a follow wherever podcasts are distributed. You can follow us on our social media pages at LO_lightning on Twitter, as well as LockedOn_lightning on Instagram. Give us a follow, subscribe, hit a thumbs up, hit that notification bell down low on our YouTube page. Drop a comment. Let us know. What do you think? Is Braydon Point the best player on this Lightning team? I think it would be a little far-fetched to, really go in the other direction with that. And you would have to say at this point in time he is. Let us know below as well. Is he top 5 in the league? I think he is. I really think he is. If you would have asked me that a couple of weeks ago, I would have I wouldn't have been as convinced, but I would have definitely sat there and debated it as, the why and why isn't he? So that's a good conversation to have, a good conversation that we can continue to have. So another conversation I want us to have is Andrei Vasilevskiy's performance tonight. So Vazzy once again goes out there, what he has done. And if you're hearing yelling in the background, I'll update you a little bit as well. So it looks like as though that the Red Wings have come back and won this game in overtime. So we get to deal with that. That's awesome. And when I say it's awesome, it's not awesome at all. I'm not happy about it. So that looks like the Lightning really their win in order for them to kind of separate themselves from the Detroit Red Wings in the Atlantic Division standings just got voided because the Penguins couldn't get the job done. But we'll save that for another episode if we really need to talk about it. But Andrei Vasilevskiy, I really think he's been playing very well lately. Got off to a little bit of a suspect start to start this season and has really turned it around in recent weeks and really over the last month. I think he's done a very, very good job in really turning it around, going out there, playing with more confidence, Really doing a good job of settling in, which is really important now. He is 3-2 over his last 5 games, and really, that takes him to, not counting tonight's game, either. He's 13-9-1 with a save percentage of 917, and a goals against average coming into tonight's game of 2.53, which throws his career goals against average to 2.5 goals per game. So, his numbers still look solid, look crazy great. Still very much on his way to becoming eventually a Vezina Trophy. I mean, excuse me, a Hall of Fame goaltender, even though he's so young and still very early on in his career. But like I said, it has been somewhat of an uphill battle in a way, for Vazzy over this year, just because what we've seen from him, and I feel like he's been very guilty of this. He's been really putting himself in situations where over the last couple of, when he makes a great save, that's one thing. But his issue is that he'll almost sacrifice his really sacrifice the rest of the net and kind of make himself more vulnerable to those rebounds. And what I really saw out of him tonight, which I was really impressed about, because, and that's the crazy thing to really think about, is that, at this point in the game, should we really be impressed with how Vasilevskiy, just in a regular season game, should we be impressed? And absolutely. But what I really liked about his performance tonight was that he stayed home. He made the saves that he needed to make. And what he did was he recovered nicely enough, not only to put himself in a great situation, or a great position, excuse me, to make the second chance save, but really did a good job on the save to where he wasn't leaving himself open, or allowing the Montreal Canadiens to have that rebound for that second chance opportunity. And really, that is something that I think goes very much under the radar with certain goaltenders, and is the reason why, certain goaltenders are why they're great. One goaltender that comes to mind that really does a good job of that is Connor Hellebuck. Hellebuck does a very good job. He's a big goalie, just like Vasilevskiy, and really takes full advantage most times of throwing that big pad out there, and really stopping those wide shots, and really pretty much kicking them aside to the boards. So, like I said, I mean, he had a very good job, did a very good job tonight. 25 for 26. Really thought that this was going to be the night. Just how things were going in the third period, up until 7:21 left in the third, up until 7:21 into the third. I really thought he was going to do it. I was going to tweet something out about it, and I was like, you know what? Don't jinx it. And of course, Montreal scores off a Caden Buell shot off the face-off in the zone. And listen, I'm not mad about it. It is what it is. It was just one of those situations where they win the draw and they fire right away. And I don't think Vasilevskiy really saw it. You could kind of see by his body language after he gave up that goal that he wished he could have that one back. I'm sure the shutout was to a certain extent in his mind, and really wanted to get that. But great performance all around, though. Nonetheless, we get a goal from Hagel as well in this, alongside with Killorn. And a lot of good performances all around. Shout out to Victor Hedman, the great pass. Pretty much, I think it was a no look. It looked like it was a no look pass. I don't know if maybe he saw Killorn there, or just assumed that someone was in front of the net and threw it there. But nonetheless, I mean, that was a great backhanded. I think it was a backhand. I think it was backhanded. Pass to the slot where Killorn's right there getting things kicked off. But pivoting a little bit real quick, because the the Lightning had a great win tonight, but they got to go back to it real quick tomorrow night against the New York Rangers at home, a back-to-back, which we will wrap up the show in just a little bit, talking about the schedule, because really, I mean, what is going on, man? I mean, the schedule that has been made for the Tampa Bay Lightning this year has been at certain times mind-boggling, and it really came to my attention from one of our uh, our listeners on YouTube, from an Alex Nelson. So, Alex, if you're listening, good observation. Really made me think about it. The Lightning have had a tough go of it this year, with their schedule, but nonetheless, they've bared down. They've proven that they can handle it. They're a very veteran, experienced team, and they've proven thus far with their play this year that they could handle any obstacle that comes along their way. So, wrapping things up, I want to talk about the schedule, because this, like I said just previously, just a few moments ago, one of our listeners from YouTube, Alex Nelson, not so much. I guess this is still a mailbag. And if you want to keep throwing in your mailbag questions on YouTube or on Twitter, please go ahead. LO_Lightning on Twitter, or Locked On_Lightning on Instagram if you want to message the account through there, or tweet or message me on Twitter. Danky Dank DENKYDANK. Really just a very head scratch of a schedule, and I'm not the type to really look at a schedule and be complain if a team is struggling, and sit there, because it's the other side of the coin too. If you're winning, you're obviously not going to say anything about the schedule. But Alex Nelson did make a very good point, that, why are we having a back-to-back now after and basically having a week off, where it's coming out of a break. There's apparently no conflict of schedule at Amalie on Tuesday. So it's very strange. And Alex also went on to talk about the unnecessary number of back-to-backs. So, looking at the schedule real quick, because the Lightning do have a back-to-back. Like I said, they'll be facing New York Rangers tomorrow night, Thursday night, at home. A team who has been a little bit of a head-scratcher in terms of, what kind of team they're going to be. They're kind of there in the Metropolitan Division, but they're not a team that necessarily, maybe if you would have asked me at the beginning of the season, I would have said, yeah, that's definitely a game I circle on the schedule. But right now, I'm just – I'm very vanilla about the New York Rangers. Maybe ask me again after tomorrow night, especially if the Lightning lose that game. But if you look at the schedule right out of the gates, and the Lightning have 2 back-to-back games in the month of October, and then they have a West Coast trip right away, which is a little bit. And also keep in mind with all this, the Lightning have played the most games out of any franchise over the last 3 years. So they got a lot of miles on them. And we look at the month of November, not too bad. Only 1 back-to-back, only 4 games on the road, 2 of those on the East, 3 of those, on the East Coast. So not too bad. Lightning get a little bit of a reprieve there. And then they have 2 back-to-backs in the month of December, one up by the border, pretty much, Detroit and Toronto. So, that's pretty much a hop, skip, and a jump there in terms of travel, going from Toronto to Detroit and then back down to Tampa. And then you have another back-to-back here at home, which it is unusual to me, at least. I don't remember. And then you have a back-to-back next week against Chicago and Minnesota. And then another one a couple of weeks later against Vancouver and Edmonton on the road. So in the midst of a 5-game road trip. So, and I'm joking, obviously, when I say that. Is the fixes in? Is the NHL trying to kind of wear down Tampa Bay early on to allow other teams, up-and-coming teams, to flourish, and everything that comes with that, more viewers, more fanship, with new fans jumping on certain bandwagons? No, I don't think so. I think that, is it unnecessary after a week off to have a back-to-back? Yeah, but A, you're at home, and B, you have a week off, so it's not that bad. And the guys were talking about it on the broadcast tonight. Coop gave all the days off. The players during the Christmas break only get 3 mandatory days off. Cooper gave them all 5 days off, just to allow to recharge, especially after those back-to-back losses. And the guys came back and they played great tonight. And I fully expect them to play great tomorrow night. And so, yeah, as little bit of a head scratcher as this is, now, if we had ourselves a situation, for example, this week with the way the schedule's split up, you have back-to-back games, and then you have a 5 o'clock game on Saturday against Arizona. Now, it's one thing if you're going from Montreal, New York to Arizona in that span, in that very tight window, and you're playing against those level of teams where really ideal, if we're going to be honest with ourselves, New York is definitely the best team out of all those listed right there. But if we're in another situation where we're talking about Toronto, Detroit, and then I don't know if you want to throw in Edmonton in that, especially if the Lightning, or Boston, Toronto, there we go. Boston, Toronto, Edmonton, or Carolina. If you want to throw any 4 of those teams into that mix, and especially if the Lightning have to travel on one of those days, yeah, be honest, you're sitting here looking at that and saying, what gives? What the hell? That you're kind of seeing, I'm sure when the NHL makes the schedule, they want to make it somewhat challenging for every team in the league. Of course, I mean, there's really no such thing as an easy schedule unless you play the Arizona Coyotes for 82 games, which obviously, that's not, that'd be an ideal schedule for anybody. But, having said that, I don't think that the league is looking at this at any type of malicious intent. I just think they made the schedule with a little bit common sense missing. So, like I said, the month of January looks a little bit better. The Lightning, they do have a long road trip there. They have 2 road trips, 3-game stretch, first week of January, and then you got a 5-game stretch, Midwest and pretty much Canada. Midwest followed by Pacific Northwest and then Canada. So not too bad. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if the Lightning come out of that road trip, especially after that Calgary game and that 2-game set against Vancouver and then Edmonton, limping a little bit. But those are all winnable games. I mean, that's the thing. It's not like we're playing against the top 5 teams in the league and you're expecting the Lightning to go from Boston to Edmonton and then to Colorado in that span. That'd be absolutely nuts in the span of 5 days. But every team goes through that. And I look at, as much as I could sit here and complain especially if the Lightning don't play well in that stretch, I'm going to sit here and say that especially if the Lightning come out and play well, or even if they play poorly, they can only get better from there. It's only going to make them better regardless of the results. And I firmly believe that. And I firmly believe with the way the Lightning have been playing the month of December, and I fully expect them to win tomorrow night, especially. And I said yesterday's episode, I fully expect the Tampa Bay Lightning to win this last 3 games of 2022 and definitely take those first 2 games of 2023. I don't have a problem with that schedule, and I wouldn't have a problem with that schedule even if the Lightning were struggling. I'd be a little worried, but I still nonetheless wouldn't have a problem with it. So let us know below in the comments or on our social media pages what you think about the Lightning's performance tonight, their upcoming schedule in 2023 in January. Do you think it's a little too tough? Yeah, we've had a unusually high somewhat number of back-to-backs these first couple of months of the season, but the Lightning have taken them all in stride and are one of the best teams in the league. And alongside with Braydon Point being top 5 player in the league and Andrei Vasilevskiy just on the cusp of getting his first shutout of the season. Hopefully we could get him that probably Saturday. I don't think he's going to play tomorrow night. It would be Brian Elliott in net So I would expect Moose to probably play a fantastic game because, I mean, he's been playing fantastic all season long. So let us know what you think about all of that. And we'll be back tomorrow to talk about the Ranger game. So keep an eye out for that. So in the meantime, that's been it for this episode of Locked On Lightning, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Adam Denker. I'll talk to you in the next one.